Okay, welcome everybody to recent changes to Google My Business, what you need to know. I'm excited to have with me today, I'm Greg Sterling, for those that don't know. I'm with the LSA, I'm the VP of Strategy and Insights. And I'm really excited to have Joy Hawkins, who is the founder of Sterling Sky, which is a digital marketing agency. She actually just founded that. She can tell you a little bit about that. And a top contributor to Google My Business forums. I mean, she's one of the most, if not the most knowledgeable people in the world, across the globe, spanning the globe on Google My Business, which is the sort of foundation of local SEO now. And this webinar is the latest in a series of local search and SEO webinars that have been really interesting and exciting, and the demand for this information has been really high. So, and that's me on the right, in case that was confusing to people. Next slide, Joe. All right. So I have to do an obligatory pitch here for 2 seconds. So LSA, Local Search Association, has a range of programs and services for people. If you're interested to learn more or become a member, you can send us an email. But we do original research, we do events. We have a big co-op program. So a lot of really great stuff going on. And again, if you want to learn more, go to our website, thelsa.org, or send us an email. Next slide, please. Just 2 more, and then we're going to get into the meat of this. We also started a digital agency and media seller certification program. So this is a program that is for companies that conform to certain ethical business practices, and we have a few of flagship members here that have just joined. We just rolled this out, so this is our initial group of people, and it's designed to really help agencies that are trying to conduct ethical practices separate themselves from those who don't. There's a lot of shady stuff going on with small business marketing outreach in the local space. So again, if you're interested in learning more, lsa.org, thelsa.org. Next slide, please. And if you're interested in location intelligence, location data, this is really one of the most exciting things going on in digital marketing right now, the way in which location data, mobile location history is being used for all kinds of things, audience segmentation, attribution, competitive intelligence, just really super interesting stuff. I've been writing a lot about this recently. We're doing a conference called the Place Conference in New York in September. This is an enterprise focus, but it's all about consumer behavior and location technology, in-store attribution, offline to online retargeting, all kinds of stuff. Google and Facebook are speakers. Place IQ, Place, which just got picked up by Snapchat, will have a great lineup of speakers, so check that out. Agenda is not posted yet, but it will be soon, September 18th. So now that I've gotten all the promotional stuff out of the way, the main event, Joy Hawkins. Welcome, Joy. I'm excited that you're here, super excited. I say that sometimes, but I really mean it this time. Okay.
Well, thank you, Greg. All right, so hi, everyone. This is Joy here. I'm going to be going through today just a few of the major changes that I've been noticing lately in regards to local search. So like Greg mentioned, I run an agency specifically dealing with local businesses. And today I thought it'd be interesting to kind of show you guys a few pieces from the advanced training that I write for Local U that is written for mainly for agencies that deal with local SEO. So hopefully you learn something, and if you have questions, definitely bring them up in the chat there as I go along. So to kind of start off, one of the major changes that I noticed that happened this year was Google removing permanently closed listings from the local finder. So just to clarify, the local finder is the list of local results that you get when you click that little more button underneath the 3-pack. And usually, it lists dozens of businesses. And in the past, like last year, I put a screenshot on the left that I took from an article I wrote on Search Engine Land. And you used to go to the very last page, and it would show all these listings that kind of ranked, but they would move to the bottom of the list because they had been marked closed. So the business is apparently no longer at that location. So I remember having lots of conversations with Google about permanently closed listings and how they are problematic, and Google kept coming back and be like, where do these things show up? They're not showing anywhere. They don't rank anywhere. So I was trying to provide them evidence that they do actually rank somewhere. So I guess they took that and decided to remove them so that they're hidden. So they no longer rank anywhere in the local results. So if you're wondering, like, okay, why would I care about this? As someone that works in local SEO, I find that this is definitely important to know because these listings are now even harder to find. In the past, I would always go to the very end of the results and look for, closed listings or problematic listings that might be causing issues. But since they're no longer there, it's harder to find them. And so not only is it harder for agencies to find them, but it would be harder for the business owner to know they exist as well. The reason why they're still problematic and still important is because they actually do still show when customers are searching, usually for brand searches. So in this case, for example, on the left-hand side, I've got a shot of this State Farm insurance agent that I guess no longer works at this location. And, any of his clients or book of business that's searching for him would get this listing when they search for his name. Likeliness is that there's now a new agent in that location or taking over that business, but they don't know that. The searcher wouldn't know that. They would just see this closed label. So it's particularly problemsome for businesses that have practitioners like insurance, realtors, lawyers, doctors, that type of thing. The other reason why they're problematic is having one of these, again, you probably won't know about it because they're so hard to find, can have a negative impact on ranking. So I've seen lots of places and scenarios where, someone isn't ranking at all, and it turns out they have a listing with the same phone number on it that is marked permanently closed for some old dentist that works at the office or some old, professional or public-facing professional. So it is definitely important on the local SEO side to know about these listings. Now they're just a little harder to find. So one of the things that I actively am now doing differently as a result of this change is, when I first start working with a new business, I'll ask them for people that used to work there that no longer do. So again, especially for like attorneys and dentists and places that have practitioners, it's really important to make sure you have a questionnaire that the business would fill out that would have former brand names, former practitioners, and former addresses, because these are all things that could trigger different listings. And then taking those pieces of information and basically plugging them into searches on Google to see what you find. And here's just a perfect example. So again, this is another State Farm example, but this agent here, Wendy Most, is at the same address and the same phone number as this Ken Willard guy. I've done lots of looking into her listing specifically, and her ranking is definitely suffering. Like she's one of the last on the list, and I kind of used it as an example because she's got a lot of really good things going for her. She's got tons of reviews, tons of citations, tons of other things that we talk about in local SEO. But most likely what is holding her back is the fact that there is this listing out there still for this other guy that she took over for that she's obviously not aware of, or if she's aware of it, not really sure how to fix it. So I don't have time today, unfortunately, to get into how to fix these, but the good news is I've written lots of pieces about it. So if you're wondering, okay, like if I find one of these or if I have one of these, what do I do? Best place to go is check out this article I wrote for Moz recently on duplicate listings, and it will kind of direct you, depending on what the scenario is, what you should do. So on to the next change. I hear a lot of people in the local SEO space, complaining about MapMaker dying earlier this year. Google cut it off, destroyed it, it's no longer around, which is unfortunate because I loved MapMaker and there was a lot of really cool features that it had that, unfortunately we don't have anymore. One of the things I think is kind of like a myth is that people think that because MapMaker's not around, all of a sudden there's nothing they can do to really edit or submit edits for listings in their area. So in particular, let's say you're working on a client or you're a business owner in a really spammy vertical or industry like locksmiths or garage door repair or cleaning companies, and you're noticing all these competitors are outranking you and they're keyword stuffing, or they have locations at UPS stores that shouldn't be on the map. In the past, you could submit edits in MapMaker. You could ask people to approve your edits, because most of the time when a new user submits an edit, it doesn't publish right away. So people are like, oh, MapMaker's gone. What do? I might submit an edit, but then it just sits there, and it just sits there forever, and I don't know what happened. And, it's not like you have the communication that you used to have with MapMaker. So good news is MapMaker may be dead, but editing is not dead. It's just different. It's changed. And I feel like this is something where a lot of people haven't quite grasped how it works now. So let's say, for example, this was a competitor of yours, this one that I've got up here that's using a UPS store. So you can see the address on it is identical to the UPS store. This is not allowed on the map. It should not have a listing. According to Google's guidelines, it should be removed as spam. So, you know, what you would do, let's say you're like, okay, this guy shouldn't be up here. I'm going to do something about it. So you go onto Google Maps. And again, always Google Maps. Just to clarify, do not do any type of editing on Google search or in the local finder. You do not get the same options. So just kind of a takeaway there, always Google Maps. So you go in there, let's say you say suggest an edit, and then you're going to say this place doesn't exist. So I'm going to say never existed because it doesn't exist there. It's a UPS store there. So that's currently how you'd submit an edit. And, you know, why does this matter? It matters hugely because spam is such a problem in local, and it works. So unless you are on the side where you are the spamming person and you're submitting this stuff, if you're on the side that I'm on where you don't like spam and you're trying to follow the rules but you're frustrated with spam outranking you because you're following the rules, this is a way to combat that. And it's a way to kind of fight back against competitors that have an unfair advantage due to breaking Google's guidelines. And I show this screenshot of SEO Vancouver because it's atrocious as far as the amount of keyword stuffing. And, you know, I highly doubt that all these businesses are actually named Vancouver SEO, needless to say. So this is what you should do differently. There's a couple different ways that you can submit an edit. Like I showed previously, that's how you do it on Google Maps. But just because you submit an edit does not mean anything's going to change. Depends on your history. You know, I have a really high trust profile, so I do a lot of editing. And so I have a pretty good publish rate because I've been doing it for years. But if you're just starting out and, you know, this is your first time editing or submitting an edit, it's not going to go live right away, most likely. So here's a way that you can have other people review your edits or also review edits that others have made. Google has a feature on Google Maps. So if you go into Google Maps and you go to your profile and you click on Check the Facts, you can actually drag the map and zoom in and zoom out and see all the pending edits. Kind of like MapMaker, but a way less sophisticated version of it. And this, when they first opened this in March, it was initially just for level 5 local guides. But currently it's for everyone. So it doesn't matter if you're a level 5 anymore. You still have access to this now. They rolled it out to everyone a few weeks later. So you can see, obviously, you can either agree or disagree with an edit or say not sure if you have no idea. So this would be, you know, something, a way that you can actually review someone else's edits. So I'll give you a scenario. Let's say me and Greg Sterling and Matt Cutts are all like, okay, we really want to get rid of spam, and this lawyer is keyword stuffing in his listing. His name is not Boston Personal Injury Lawyers. So I'm going to go ahead and submit an edit to his listing and just correct it, like in the screenshot there. What I've found through lots of testing is that if Matt and Greg and me all submit the same edit, it actually works like an approval. So kind of like with MapMaker when, you know, people would vote or say yes to your edit and they'd agree with it, having multiple people submit the same edit works the same way. Before you freak out and think I'm telling you to go spam and like submit tons of edits, I do want to really clarify that if anyone tells you to make an edit, like your coworker or someone that you're working with, definitely do your homework. Do not just take someone's word on it, because at the end of the day, if you make an edit that actually is spam or, you know, the opposite of the correct thing, Google can ban your profile for doing that. So, you know, you never want to just trust someone's word on it. But this is a very little known fact, is that, you know, submitting the same edit multiple times is essentially the same thing as approving an edit. So back when MapMaker existed, if you submit the same edit multiple times, it would actually just clog up the system, and it would literally like just submit more and more edits, and then it kind of almost froze the system because then only one of the edits could be approved since they were all identical. So it's kind of messed up. It does not work that way with Google Maps. It's much more sophisticated. So if they see the same edit coming through and over again, it's a trigger to them that like, okay, multiple people are saying this is the case, it must be the case, and depending on the amount of people and their trust level, it'll eventually publish. And all of you that submitted the same edit would get this approval email saying your edit is now live, like the one I've got here. And again, never ever blindly submit an edit just because someone tells you to, but I do always suggest people are active with editing in their community, because it does really help if Google sees that you've got lots of good authority, trusted edits. It really helps your trust profile so that future edits that you make will go live quicker. And this is just an example of why you'd want to do this again. So I had a attorney that contacted me whose competitors were just like spamming the heck out of his area. I mean, they were like, the business names were so long, it didn't even make sense. Like they were putting the city name, the word, family law attorney, everything you could imagine in their business title because it helps ranking. It does. It works. That's why people do it. And literally by going in there and editing these listings and correcting them so that they weren't keyword stuffing anymore, this is what ended up happening to him, the guy that was actually following the rules. He was actually filtered out for a lot of the different searches, and literally removing the keyword stuffing on the competitors made it so that he went from being filtered to like third or second for these same keywords. So it can have a really cool impact and a quick impact too, like this is literally the next day. So change number 3, Google Plus, the classic version anyways, is dead. So it's been dead for a while. Google came out with the new version of Google Plus, I think back in 2015. But there was still a way to trigger the old Google Plus and like some workarounds that a lot of us used to use. So the old version, the reason why a lot of people in this industry liked it is because it had like the reviews on it and it had the map on it and all this local information. And I know for those of you that have been in this space for a while, this is where you used to send people to write you a review. And then all that changed with the new version. The new version has like no location information on it, no reviews, none of that rich data that everyone likes. So basically what Google changed is that you can no longer trigger the old version. Why this matters for those of you that are hunting for duplicates for listings, the site plus.google.com no longer works the way that it used to, because the classic version is gone as of March. Like you can't even get to it at all anymore. Google's not storing it anywhere. It's completely removed. So just an FYI, because I used to preach that this was like the best way to find duplicates, and I even wrote an article on Search Engine Land about it. If that's what you're using right now to find duplicates, that method does not work anymore. It still surfaces some, but it does not catch them all, so don't do it. So make sure you do, if you are using this method, it does still catch unverified listings. But it doesn't catch a lot of other listings that might exist, especially the verified ones. So make sure you have other methods you're using to find duplicates. Change number 4, this is one that I was very excited about. On Google Maps, now people that have left reviews, you can also see how many other reviews that they've written. So a former colleague of mine, Colin, like you can see the review he left for my company. He's left 82 reviews. So seeing that, like obviously as a user, I like that because it tells me, how many other reviews this person's written, and it kind of adds to the trustworthiness of the review. However, it's also good if you're looking for review spam. So this particular user wrote all these reviews for different companies that just so happen to be in very spammy verticals. And what is the likeliness that this one user left a review for a property maintenance person in Ottawa, and then apparently also got her carpets cleaned in Hawaii, and apparently also got her trees fixed in Indiana. So this is what I call a fake review network. It's easier to spot these now that you can see profiles and the number of reviews they have on them. So if I'm looking to see if someone's got fake reviews that I need to report, I will often look for profiles that have more than one review, obviously, right? So this is a time saver. And again, I suggest people do this for their competitors because fake reviews is a very big growing problem. For anyone that reads anything Mike Blumenthal writes, he's been writing a lot about this recently, and stay tuned because I have an article coming out on Search Engine Land this month talking about review spam. So definitely be aware of that. Change number 5, this one I was not a big fan of. Google has rolled out the snack pack to more industries in the United States, not in Canada or other countries from what I can tell. If you're wondering what the heck the snack pack is, so the screenshot on the left, that's what we call the snack pack. And the traditional 3-pack is on the right. And you'll notice with the snack pack, Google actually removes the links for the website and then link for the driving directions, and they replace it with a photo. Why they would do this with pest control is beyond me. Like, I really don't want to see photos of bugs when I'm searching. But this was one of the changes that Google made earlier this year, and it did roll out. It's not a test. Like, it rolled out everywhere. Every user is seeing it. So unfortunately, that's the case. And then on mobile, it's even worse because on mobile it removes the call button. So again, I know others have said Google is doing this because they are trying to keep people on the Google search results as long as possible instead of driving them to a website. But definitely, I wouldn't say it's necessarily a good thing for businesses. Why does this matter? So if this happened to your business or a business that you work with, the lack of a call button on mobile could definitely result in a loss of calls in the Google My Business dashboard. So if you're like looking at insights, you're like, crap, why did my calls drop? It could be, hey, maybe it's because Google's no longer showing a call button. That could definitely drive lower the number of calls you get. Also, same way, the lack of the website icon could make the traffic in Google Analytics go down. So all this traffic that maybe you're still getting on the listing is not going to show up in either of those two places. So it's always really good to be aware of changes to the search results and the layouts. How I do this personally is I use BrightLocal for ranking tracking because they have screenshots, and every time that they run the ranking tracker, it takes a screenshot of the search results. So if I'm trying to identify what the heck changed, I can look at the screenshots and see, like, oh, this is what it looked like yesterday, and this is what it looks like today. And it's really important to make sure this type of stuff is explained to business owners as well if they're, like, wondering about, again, if they see a drop in analytics or calls. Change number 6, this was something that Google did announce, but I don't think that people quite got why it matters. So Google launched this feature called bulk insights. And initially looking at it, it wasn't like anything fancy or crazy, but it's just a way for merchants with lots of locations to download insights all at once. No big deal, right? What is really cool about it is for the first time ever, these insights allow you to select a customized date range that goes back 18 months. So you can see here in the screenshot, when you click Download Insights, you can actually select the dates that you want the insights for. This is the first time ever that you've been able to see data inside the Google My Business dashboard for longer than 90 days. So you guys are probably accustomed to going in there and you have this lovely option of either 1 week, 1 month, or 1 quarter. Kind of useless if you're, just starting to work with a business and you're trying to figure out historically how they've done, or if you're working with a seasonal business. Like I've got a client in lawn care, and I'm like, well, if I want to know, their activity in June and July is not the same as their activity in the winter, obviously. So if I really want to know, like, what their activity was last year, there never used to be a way for me to see that. Well, now there is. So that's been really super helpful. So I would strongly suggest, for what you do differently, for seasonal businesses, which there's quite a few of those types out there, make sure you track year-over-year data increases and changes, not month-over-month. It's a lot more accurate to kind of see what's getting better or worse. Change number 7, this is something that is rolling out to certain industries, so not everyone has this, but Google is now allowing businesses to add menu URLs inside the Google My Business dashboard. So this is not just for restaurants. A lot of people think menu and they're like, wait, that's, for restaurants. It's for like chiropractors have it, spas, I think orthodontists, I believe, have this. So there's quite a few industries that you'll see it for. And if you notice that there is an option inside the Google My Business dashboard, you can essentially create a page on your website that lists all your services and pricing if you want, kind of like this spa here, and then submit that inside the Google My Business dashboard. So why does it matter? This is another item that will show up in your knowledge panel. So on the left-hand side, you can see how it looks for this dentist, and it says products and services. So again, kind of confusing. Google can be confusing with their messaging. This products and services section is pulling the menu. So they call it products and services. In the dashboard, they still call it menu. More information about the business that you put on the menu could impact ranking. I say could because it's brand new, and I honestly haven't tested it. But yeah, keep in mind it's something you should definitely test. I would definitely add it if you have it available and see what kind of difference it makes as far as your ranking goes. And then the last changes I'm going to highlight here are in regards to ads showing in the 3-pack. So last year at SMX Advanced, I'll never forget, I was sitting in the audience and someone from Google got up and spoke and talked about how they were testing this. And I took a picture with my phone, and it was all blurry, and then I tweeted it right away, and I was like, ooh, we have ads coming to the 3-pack. And then I remember after the session was done, I got up with Greg Sterling and asked the speaker from Google if I could get a copy of his slides so I could get a better picture. And he was like, oh, yeah. He's like, no, I can't give you a copy, and please don't tweet it. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry, too late. So this was a year ago, and they didn't give us any type of inclination that, it was definitely going to get rolled out, when it was going to get rolled out. but I consistently started seeing these as of around February, March of this year on mobile. They're showing up everywhere now, not just for me, but for everyone. So if you don't search a lot on mobile, maybe you're just using your computer, so you didn't even notice these exist. They are pretty common for almost every industry. And so what kind of features or why they're cool is that it allows one business to actually occupy 2 spots. So I was wondering if this was possible. It is. So if you're a business and you've got an ad running, you can actually take the ad spot and still have your organic ranking in the 3-pack. So now you've literally taken 50% of the screen. Pretty cool. And then another cool thing about it is that, for a lot of businesses, one of their pain points is that they may exist in city, let's say this person's in Bartlett, Illinois, but she really services a wide range of areas. And so with the ads, you can actually show in cities you're not physically located in. So the search that triggered this ad was actually a search in Elgin, Illinois. Her local listing still shows, it's an ad obviously, but it looks like a local listing. And it still shows even though it's not actually the city that she's located in. So that's kind of cool. And then the other crazy thing, this kind of blew my mind, I was not expecting this, is that the 3-pack ad doesn't even replace the regular ad. So if you're running an AdWords account and you have location extensions enabled, you can literally show up on the page 4 times. So you'd have your regular ad, and sorry, this kind of looks clunky, but the screenshot on the left was the first 3 things I saw on my phone, and then the screenshot on the right is as I kept scrolling down what showed up. So the first things I see are the regular ads. She's got an ad there. I keep scrolling down, then I get the 3-pack. She's got an ad in the 3-pack. Then she's got a regular listing in the 3-pack, and then she also shows up organically, but it's just crazy. So 4 spots, and it's almost like double ads, which is not what I was expecting. I was expecting if you had a 3-pack ad, your regular ad would not be there. It's either one or the other, but that is not true. So what you should do differently, again, if you're using Google AdWords, definitely make sure you have location extensions enabled. Also, do some testing to make sure that you actually see the ad, because sometimes there is tricks to, trying to get them to show up properly. So definitely check on a phone to see if you've got an ad showing up. I forgot to put the link in here, but Mobile Moxie, if you do a search for them, they have a search simulator tool that's really cool. And you can basically log in and use that. It's free, and you can check on your computer what shows up on a phone. So if you're like me, you don't actually feel like getting out your phone and checking. You can do that, and it also allows you to mask your location, which is super helpful. So if you want to see what a person in Chicago sees, but you're actually in Seattle, you can just select, you want your user location to be Chicago on their tool, and then see what types of ads show up there, and if it's you or if it's your competitor, etc. So Greg, that's the end of the talking points. If you want to start the Q&A.
Yes, absolutely. We've already got a lot of questions, so that was great. Round of applause for Joy. Clap, 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 clap. Virtual applause. You can tell people about your training manual if you want to. It's right there. Do you want to say anything about that?
Oh yeah. So I asked Local Youth for a promo code to offer to you guys. So training manual, again, like I kind of mentioned a bit earlier, is a guide that I wrote, and I'm still writing. I update it monthly. It's currently about 168 pages, and it's mainly it's supposed to be for people that want an advanced look at local SEO. So do not buy this if you are just getting started with SEO or you don't know a lot about Google My Business. It's supposed to be for people that are running agencies or business owners that do it themselves, that know a bit or quite a bit, but really want the next step on how to see things on their competitors, or how to do things better themselves, and best practices that'll really help them just get the most out of local SEO and ranking.
Okay, great. And great tips and insights, and we've got a lot of questions, so we're going to get to as many of them as we can. A lot of general SEO questions, as well as specific questions about things that you mentioned. What I neglected to mention in the beginning is that people could ask questions, but you obviously already know that in the control panel. You can submit your questions, and we'll try and get to as many of them as we can in the next half hour. Also, this webinar will be made available to everybody within a couple of days. Probably by Friday, we'll send an email out to everybody who registered, and you'll get the full recording. So you'll be able to review it again, or if you are not here, you can't hear me saying this, you'll be able to watch it for the first time. So with that, let me go into these questions, and I've got a lot of them here. let's say, so this is just maybe a question of clarification. You already answered this, I think, but just to reiterate, if it didn't come across to everybody, the question is, what if a permanently closed listing shares the same address, as opposed to phone number, I suppose, as one of your open listings?
So it's only really a problem if it's for the same business, right? So if you had like a Starbucks and then let's say a McDonald's moved in where the Starbucks used to be, that's not really a problem that the Starbucks is marked closed, right? So it really depends on if it's the same business category and if it's the same business. So if it is the same business, yes, it could be problematic even if it does use a different phone number. So just depending on the scenario, which is why I would definitely look at that Moz article that I mentioned, because that deals with like 15 or 20 different scenarios that might happen, and what you'd want to do actually varies quite a bit based on what the actual scenario is.
Okay, can you go to that URL real quickly? I don't. You can go into the
Let me just see here. So it was,
and that covers a range of. This covers a range
quite
of
a range.
situations. Okay, so it includes phone number duplication, address duplication. All right. So if it's a different business at the same physical address, don't worry about it. Is that the advice?
If it's for a totally different business in an unrelated industry, I wouldn't worry about it because it should be closed, right? If it's for the same business and it's in the same industry, then I would be concerned about it and would suggest that you check out the article to see how you can deal with it, just depending on the scenario.
Okay. Is a service area business using multiple home addresses? That's confusing to me. A service area business using multiple home addresses considered spam by Google? Yes.
So I'll clarify. There's a couple exceptions. So there are a few chains out there. So like Pop Lock is an example. They are a locksmith chain, and most of their locations do list their home address, but they actually have franchises. So each location has its own business license, aka it pays its own taxes. It's an actual separate entity and corporation and would have a separate business license. So they actually do it properly, where that's the case where it's just one business and they're creating multiple listings using home addresses. No, that is not allowed. Yes, that is spam, and yes, you can get them removed.
Okay, great. Somebody's asking about change number 2, attorneys and keyword stuffing. They're just asking you to explain again change number 2 having to do with attorneys and keyword stuffing.
Yeah, so I use attorneys as an example because they're one of the worst categories for keyword stuffing that I've seen. So if you've got, let's say you're a personal injury attorney in Boston and you want to rank for the keyword Boston personal injury attorney, one of the ways you could do that is just go into your Google My Business dashboard and add Joe Smith, Boston personal injury attorney, add the Boston personal injury attorney to your business name. So that is against the Google My Business guidelines. They tell you not to do that. But unfortunately, Google doesn't have any really good way of moderating it and automatically catching them. So the problem that we have, is that it works. It helps these people rank that are breaking the rules. And so if you're not also keyword stuffing, you're kind of at a loss, really, in comparison to the guys that are. So one of the things you can do is, again, edit the listings for the businesses that are keyword stuffing to remove it. So if the listing currently is titled Bob Smith Best Personal Injury Attorney Boston, you would correct it to just say Bob Smith Firm, or whatever the name of the firm is, because that's what they should actually have in their listing on Google. And if you're wondering more about how it impacts ranking, check out Local SEO Guide, who's run by Andrew Shotland. They did a survey, I think last year, that's on their website. It's called the Local Search Ranking Factors. It's very similar name to the one that Moz does. And they found that having the keyword in your business title has a massive correlation to ranking. So this is, again, why people do it, because it does work, unfortunately.
Yeah, Google needs to fix that, because that's the AAA plumbing kind of thing for traditional media. So I'm getting a question every single second here. So as I try and focus in on them, the new ones pop up. Okay, does your Google My Business phone number need to match your website's phone number to improve its ranking?
Yes. So what actually can happen if they don't match is a lot of times Google will actually scrape the phone number off your website and update the listing automatically. I've seen them do this quite a bit, especially with business hours. I'd say that happens more with hours than with phone numbers, but you do want to have the match. One way around that is to use dynamic call insertion. So if you use a company like Call Tracking Metrics or CallRail, they do have a way to dynamically swap the phone number, but they do it in a way so that Google can still read the correct number. So that's the best solution. You never want to just paste your tracking number onto your website because ideally you do want to make sure that you match.
Okay. Question about listings with the same address and suite number with different phone numbers. An insurance office with several branches within the office. This can happen with lawyers as well. The question is, how do these manifest in the 3-pack? Is there filtering happening? What advice do you have for businesses to ensure all branches within the larger office or all individuals within the larger office receive the same amount of visibility?
So it's not possible, from my perspective anyways, and experience, for them to all have the same visibility. Like they mentioned in insurance, it happens a lot. So Google will pick one, maybe two. I think I've seen 3 a couple times, but it's very rare. So usually it's 2, and the rest will get filtered. So let's say, for example, the search is Auto Insurance Seattle, and you've got an office that's got 15 insurance agents. Google will pick the strongest, and by the strongest, I mean the one that has the best ranking, all the different ranking factors, the hundreds of ranking factors, and whoever's got, the best, they would list those people and filter all the rest of them. And usually it's 1 or 2. I think a common misunderstanding of that is it's not by address, it's not by suite number. So a lot of people are like, oh, I'll just put a suite number in and that will make Google unfilter them. And nothing to do with suite numbers. It has to do with proximity. So literally if you've got an insurance office across the street from you, they can cause you to get filtered. Usually it's within like a 1 to 3 minute walking distance. I just did a consultation earlier this week with an orthodontist who is filtered due to a competitor that is literally down the street. Totally separate address, totally separate building. He's a 1 minute walk away, and he's ranking, and this guy is not. So unfortunately, there is no way to make it equal. The only way usually to get unfiltered is to beat out the person filtering you. So it becomes kind of like a bloodbath because if you want to get unfiltered and this guy down the street is filtering, essentially what will happen most likely is when you get unfiltered, he will then become filtered. And more on that topic is in the article I wrote for Search Engine Land last year about Possum. So that happened the time with September 1st when Possum happened. They changed the way the filter works, and now it's heavily filtering based on location.
What about this is my follow-up question. What about a brand search? I mean, what about a specific name in mind search where somebody looks for the filtered person or entity at the same address? Are they going to be visible in that situation, or will there be? Yeah.
The filter does still apply for branded searches to some extent. So let me clarify. So let's say you have State Farm. This is a good example. State Farm agents sometimes will share offices. So let's say, Greg, you and I are both State Farm agents and we share an office. So a search for State Farm Seattle would still filter one of us, most likely. But a search for State Farm Greg Sterling would trigger your knowledge panel, and a search for State Farm Joy Hawkins would surface mine. But a search for just State Farm, the filter still applies.
Okay, here's a related question. I think somebody has two clients with similar names, and this person says they're right next to each other, which I assume is physical proximity, like adjacent businesses or nearby, sort of the scenario you were talking about. They're separate businesses, and then it says different street names, so maybe they're nearby. Are they hurting each other, and how do I get Google to know they are legitimately different businesses? So 2 clients, similar names, different street names, but close enough that there's some confusion. How do you communicate the distinction to Google?
So if they're both competing for the same keyword, like they both want to rank for, lawyer Boston, most likely not going to happen if they're close together due to what I was mentioning with the filter. It's not that Google thinks they're the same business. It's just, I believe, again, I'm assuming this, I believe that Google is trying to diversify their search results and thinking to themselves that if someone searches lawyer Boston, they don't want 3 lawyers that are all in the same building. They would much rather have 3 lawyers kind of spread out around the city. Again, I'm assuming this. I really have no idea. But that's what I think. It just makes sense that they might want to do that. So in this guy's case, if they are in the same industry and they're competing for the same keywords, the filter will most likely apply and filter one out.
Okay. I got the impression that they were similar sounding brand names, like
yeah. So
not necessarily. Yeah. Go ahead.
So you're talking like maybe the search for the company name, it's triggering the wrong result?
That's what I'm inferring.
Okay.
That their company names are close.
Yeah, so there's no way to completely get rid of the other people if they're relevant, because I did have this question once for a plumbing business, and because the name of the plumbing company is similar to other company names, when you search the name of the company, it doesn't just give them like the only listing. The competitors do show up as well. There's no way really to combat that other than just to honestly build a really solid backlink profile and, citation profile and, do the most you can there. But there's no way to eliminate the other people from showing because they're close, like because of that's just the way that Google works, unfortunately.
Okay, so shifting gears a bit here, somebody's asking, what can you do about a hostage GMB listing?
So I'm assuming they're talking about like someone hijacking your listing or, hostage. So like with someone owns your listing and won't give you access. So Google does have a new process for this where, the typical process is that you try to gain ownership. Google contacts the existing owner and tries to, see if they will give you access. If they don't hear back, they usually will transfer the request. What ends up happening, which I'm assuming that they're referring to sometimes, is that the original owner does respond and says, no, I'm not giving you access. So usually it's a marketing company that people canceled with and they don't want to give up access. Usually the way to fight that, I would say, is get in touch with Google My Business on Twitter. Their Twitter handle is at Google My Biz, B-I-Z. And usually they are able to kind of combat that. A lot of times what helps fight that is if the listing, let's say the listing is for Starbucks, and the previous owner is like some marketing agency, so they've got it owned in a Gmail account. But you have an @Starbucks email that you've registered with Google, and that's the account you're trying to claim it in. That's going to really help you prove to Google My Business that you should be the owner. So never, when you're fighting these types of hostage things, never use a Gmail or any type of generic email. Always use a Google account that is registered with an email address that matches the domain of the business you're trying to get access to. That's just the one way that you can prove that you are the real owner and they are not. But that's one of those cases where I would definitely suggest getting in touch with Google My Business. I would suggest doing it via Twitter. Their support there is astronomically better than their phone support. And make sure that you are not also using a Gmail, because if they're fighting between a Gmail and a Gmail, they have no idea who it's who. And you're not going to have any success with that.
So here's a related question. What's the best way to recover a listing if it's been suspended, i.e. Google has, quote, Google has suspended your page due to quality issues?
So it depends on what type of suspension it was, because there's 2 different types. So one was what I call a soft suspension, which is when Google basically unverifies the listing. So the owner loses access to it, so it won't show up in Google My Business, but the listing still exists on Google Maps. So it's still got all its reviews and everything like that on it. It still actually ranks fine, but you don't have any ability to control it anymore. If it's a soft suspension, usually it means you've done some type of spamming with your account, or Google thinks you've done some type of spamming with your account. Or IP address. They're not nearly as bad. Usually you just need to create a new Google account and reclaim the listing, like re-verify it. If it's a hard suspension, so that means like Google has completely wiped you off the face of the earth, your listing's gone, you have no reviews, then you're in trouble because it means Google does not think you exist. They are severely, considering whether or not your business is at that location. Usually you will have to provide them documentations like business licenses and photos and video proof to make sure that you get reinstated. Again, that's one thing where I would either reach out via Twitter If they're still denying you, you can also post on the Google My Business forum. Most of these cases, I mean, people are using like UPS stores or, like a lot of times it's stuff like that. So it really just depends on why it got suspended to begin with. But if those two methods don't work, I mean, that's really your only option. Whatever you do, do not recreate the listing. People often do that thinking they'll just start over. You're just basically setting yourself up to have it happen again if you do that. So would not suggest doing that.
There are a number of questions tied into like P.O. boxes or Regis offices or not, traditional storefronts. So I'm gonna try and give these to you in sequence. This person is a home business that doesn't want to publish their home address, wants to suppress it. Doesn't say that, but doesn't want to publish their home business. Is UPS street address with unit 4 P.O. box a viable alternative? What basically the general question is, if you're a home-based business, what should you do? Specifically, is a UPS store address worth anything, or what are the options?
Oh no, do not use a UPS store. That will absolutely get your listing suspended and removed. So don't do that. Use your home address, but you do have the option to hide it. You don't have to show it. So my company's listing is set up like this. So I'm a home-based business, and I use my home address, but it's not publicly visible anywhere. It just shows like a circle, like the area around my house, but it won't show to anyone other than Google. If you use your home address, definitely don't use a P.O. box ever.
And then you did mention that if you're doing PPC, you can designate business areas and get broader coverage. You can target particular areas where you service, but that are not within close proximity to your home.
Yeah, that's pretty much the only option. I mean, you can obviously target organic, but people often want to know how they can rank in a 3-pack in 15 different towns. You can't. It's just generally the idea. Where people get confused is they go into Google My Business dashboard and they're like, oh, I set my service area to say I service 50 miles around my office, but just because you set a radius of 50 miles does not mean you're going to rank in those towns. Your service area literally the only purpose of it is to show a radius on the map. That's it. It has no impact on ranking. So yeah, AdWords is a good option for those cases.
Or perhaps the only option, as the case may be.
Yeah.
So here's somebody who presumably is working with attorneys or is an attorney, probably working with attorneys. How does an attorney who has a legitimate Regis office, as an example, not get grouped with spammers and be seen by Google as a legitimate local business? So this is a Regis office, sort of a version of the preceding UPS store question.
Yeah.
They want to establish their legitimacy. Can they do that?
Spend a couple of $100 and hire a Google photographer. That's probably the best way, because they would literally come out, take photos of your location, do a video that would get added to your listing so people can see your office. And that's probably the #1 way that you will not get flagged. I had a guy that does AC repair that did that because he actually does have a storefront, but because his industry is so spammy and most people that are in it do not, like they're just using random addresses, he went ahead and got a Google photographer, and it's definitely helped a lot.
So is it the case that Google just trusts the photographer? They just trust the photographer, and the photographer establishes the legitimacy of the business, having been there physically and provided
exactly.
evidence?
Well, and videos don't lie, right? I mean, videos are better evidence than photos are, because you can literally see around. You can be like, oh, this is the business from outside. Okay, so this is the same business. Because unfortunately, spammers now Photoshop listings. Like attorneys, a lot do that. They literally go and get the Regis address and try and Photoshop their name and put it on the door. And unfortunately, we see quite a bit of that still in the forums.
That's amazing. So quickly on photographs. I mean, it's very creative. I wouldn't have thought to do that. But on the issue of photographs, the snack pack images that replace the call buttons that you were showing, somebody wants to know, where is Google pulling these icons or images from?
Usually they are from the dashboard, but as far as what image Google picks, it's not always the image that you put as your profile picture. I know Mike Blumenthal used to do testing around this and kind of stated that one of the things they look for is a high-resolution photo, so if you have a really small, crappy photo, it's not as likely Google's going to pull it. As well, they don't tend to like logos as much. So having an actual photo of the business, maybe the business owner, I don't know, the business in action, that type of thing is generally better. But yeah, they don't unfortunately always use the one that you choose as your profile picture inside the dashboard. So I would say test it out if it's not currently pulling the one that you want them to see if you can manipulate it into choosing the one you want.
Here's a healthcare specific question. Do you recommend Google My Business optimization for all physical locations, hospitals, clinics, etc., and all physicians within those locations, assuming the data is optimized and managed? Do the physical locations and physicians then compete with themselves? I guess a doctor working within a clinic, it would be the example.
Yeah. For doctors, I would say, so it's a little different. So for dentists, for example, I generally say don't create listings for the dentist if they don't exist already. A lot of times Google creates them automatically, so they already exist. So you might as well manage them and make the most out of them. I did write an article on, like, again, because there's so many different scenarios, so my advice sometimes varies based on what the business is trying to achieve. I published it on Whitespark, I think last year. There's a guide on practitioner listings and best practices. So check that out. But for hospitals, for example, a lot of times it is good to manage the doctor profiles just for review and reputation management, because I know I've seen some pretty scathing reviews out there in that industry, and it's usually a good idea to be able to respond to them and kind of know about them. But I don't generally suggest creating practitioner listings if they don't exist already, because yes, they do compete in a sense. If you're trying to get ranked for a specific keyword, you're not going to have 15 of your doctors occupy the local results. It's going to pick a couple and filter the rest. Where it can be beneficial is when patients are searching for the doctor's name and they want to see the hours or the location that their doctor is at. That's where it can be a really good user experience. So just depending on your objective.
So still tons of questions coming in, a lot of good and very specific questions. We're going to try and get to as many of them as possible. We'll go a few minutes over, but we won't be able to get to every one of them. I apologize. I'm going to try and get to as many as possible. Here's a sort of a related question. How can you prevent the merging of Google My Business listings for kiosks and the stores they're located inside of?
Kiosks honestly aren't usually allowed listings, so it really, I guess, depends. Google made an exception for Redbox, I believe. There's some cases, but I know they actually just recently removed a bunch up in the Toronto area for like this, I think it was like this kiosk that sold food inside of grocery stores. Unless they're staffed and have like a separate phone number and like a reason to have a separate entity, there's all kinds of rules around it. But for the most part, kiosks aren't allowed. So if Google's merging them, I would suggest reaching out to Google My Business about that, because they may not be eligible for listings. There's a lot of specifics there that I don't know. It's kind of hard to advise.
Okay. Here's a question about phone numbers. Does having an 800 number as the second number on all of the GMB listings hurt the rankings of pages since they all have the same phone number? So I guess this would be a backup phone number that's the same across multiple pages, if I understand that correctly. Maybe you understand it better than I.
Yeah, no, not, I've never seen any cases that would say that it does hurt. So no, I would say no, it doesn't hurt.
Okay, so a review question, a review spam. You talked about a new feature being able to spot review spam. Maybe that's your own keen eye that you were referring to, but can this also be used for reputation vandalism is the person's question. Can you report the profile for false reviews? So this person, Crystal Bella, can she be reported for false reviews?
Yeah.
Somehow.
So where I would probably suggest reporting this is on the Google My Business forum. You can also report users on the Local Guides forum. Like there's a forum specifically called Local Guides Connect that it's for local guides, and I know that you can report spammers over there. The only reason why I would suggest Google My Business is because I've never tried reporting someone over at the local guides forum, so I'm not sure how the process works there. But I literally just talked to a guy this morning that reported this business that was getting fake reviews. They had like hundreds of them, and Google removed like over 600 this morning. They got back to me. So I mean, Google does actively remove fake reviews when they're reported. The thing is the proof, right? So you have to be able to actively prove that they're fake. You know, in this case, I proved it sort of by saying, like, how is it possible, you know, for this one person to have their trees trimmed in one, you know, place, and then their carpet cleaned in Hawaii, and then they're, you know, like, it's kind of obvious. But I know in like a lot of cases when people report quote unquote fake reviews, it's a negative review that the person's left one review and it's negative, and they're like, oh, this person was never a customer. Those cases, I'll be honest, it's very unlikely Google's going to remove the review. So the key is to have evidence and then create your case on the Google My Business forum.
Okay, a photo-related question. So there's an image, Google removes the image or doesn't use the image. It says, can you update an image that Google pulls? If Google pulls a Street View image, can you override that with a more current image? I'm assuming by pulls this person means Google is using that image, but maybe I'm incorrect. If you understand that.
So if they're talking about Street View, actually I've just added a section to my training this month on Street View and what to do if it's wrong. So sometimes it's wrong just because it's outdated and the Google car isn't driven by recently. So you can actually, there's a list out there that you can get the next time that Google plans on coming by your city, if you're wondering how long you have to wait. So that can be really helpful if you're trying to figure out, you know, when Google can update Street View. Sometimes Street View is wrong because the pin is in the wrong spot. So, you know, if you've accidentally got pinned in the middle of the street, instead of having the pin on your actual building, it'll show like some random Street View of like a car. And you can manipulate that through the Google My Business dashboard. So that's an easier fix. But one way to overwrite Street View is to hire a Google photographer, because if you have an inside tour, it replaces Street View on the knowledge panel. So Street View will actually disappear. And that's probably what I would suggest if it's causing a real problem.
So here's a question from somebody. We're right at the hour mark, and this is typically where I would say thank you for joining us. Goodbye. But we're going to keep going because there's still so many questions. If you're not fatigued, Joy, you're
Okay.
fine to keep going for a few minutes?
I haven't fallen asleep
Okay.
yet. I'm good.
Okay, good. Well, this is great information for people, so there's a lot of it still coming in. Here's somebody who's managing a bunch of customer or client accounts, and they're asking, do you recommend separate Google My Business accounts for each client, or grouping them to allow changes in bulk?
So if it's the same business, definitely have them all on the same account. If you're McDonald's and you have, you know, millions of locations, having them in one account is a good idea. For agencies, however, like, so I don't know the context of this question, but if it's like an agency that is creating a new listing for a business that doesn't already exist, I would definitely suggest that you do it in an account the business owner controls, using their email address and setting it up, and then just making yourself a manager. So as long as you're just the manager and you have like I have my main Google account is a manager of tons of listings, non-related. And I just use one account because it's way easier. Trying to log into 15 different accounts is a nightmare. But I'm not the owner of those listings. I'm just a manager. So provided that's the way you have it set up, where the business owner is the owner, they've got their own account that's just got the one listing in it, and you're just a manager, doesn't matter how many listings you've got in your account as a manager. So that's, I think, where agencies go wrong a lot, is they're the owner of like all these unrelated business listings. And I've seen lots of cases where Google will suspend the account because they're like, this person doesn't own all these businesses.
Okay. And a question about hijacking or listings here. I've got to find it because I scrolled past it. I'll just do it from memory because I'm not finding it. So somebody's gone through a process where they're trying to capture a listing, and Google apparently has declined because the person who controls the listing isn't doing anything malicious, what's the next step, or how does the person asking the question escalate or find some sort of redress here?
Yeah, so this would be the same answer I gave earlier about getting ownership. So make sure you're using an email address on the domain name of the business. Get in touch with Google social support, like I'd use Twitter, not phone support. And honestly, just say this, if you know who the owner is too as well, if it's some old SEO company you hired a year ago, that's helpful as well. Just say listen, we canceled with these people. They're not affiliated with our business, even though they're not doing anything malicious now. We want the ability to respond to our own customer reviews. Point that out. Sometimes I'm just astounded by some of the responses people get from Google My Business phone support, but it's sometimes good to remind them of why you need access. Hey, these are our customers. We need to respond to reviews from them. Or, hey, we really want to know how many people are seeing our listing. And this other person doesn't even have an email address, with our company. You can see that they're not affiliated. Sometimes you just got to connect the dots for them, unfortunately. But try Twitter. You'll probably have better luck than if you were dealing with phone support.
So quick question about SEO. Somebody's asking if high-quality images are going to have a positive impact on ranking.
So Google really pushes images. They've done all kinds of studies that say that businesses that have images get way more clicks than businesses that don't, yada, yada. I don't know if it's necessarily that it helps the ranking per se. I've never seen any cases where you add 20 photos and your listing jumps from, J to C positioning-wise. But I would say that it helps click-through rate and helps people correspond with the listing. And then I would also say that click-through rate definitely impacts ranking. So yes, it's a good idea to add photos. If it's the only strategy that you're doing for SEO, you probably won't see the ranking increase that you're wanting.
Yeah, I can verify that businesses with photos perform better than those without on the click-through metric, and Yelp validates that as well. Okay. Question about the knowledge panel. So there's a business that comes up in the knowledge panel. There's a descriptor, and it has various fields and information, category, location, city or town name. And this person is asking what to do when the town that's reflected in the knowledge panel does not match the business's mailing address.
Yeah, I have a whole section about this on my training because this is a question I get a lot. The town that Google lists in the knowledge panel at the top, not the one that's in the address field, is the town that you're physically located in. Physical addresses and mailing addresses can be different. They are a lot. For my home, for example, I am in a different city for my mailing address than I am for my physical address. Google does not care what your post office address is. They are going to use the physical address. So whatever they are displaying is what's correct. Unfortunately, whatever you're using for your mailing address is not what will impact where you show up at all. So for example, if your mailing address is in Miami, but your physical address is right outside Miami, yes, it will hurt your ability to rank for keywords to do with Miami. And no, there's really no way around that because Google uses physical addresses. They always have. My solution usually is, I suggest to people to always match and use their physical address in the city field. But even if they don't, even if they put in some random city, it doesn't matter. Google will still rank them based on where the pin is, not what they actually enter in the field.
Okay, an address-related question. If I move office locations and update the address in the GMB dashboard, how long will it take to be updated? Will I have to wait for another verification postcard to be sent out?
So it depends on how far away you move. Sometimes they verify and sometimes they don't. I believe that they're going to start verifying more than they used to because people used to do this to spam. They would just claim a listing and then update the address to something different, which is unfortunate, but it worked. So usually they do send out a new postcard. You have to get the postcard. Usually that happens within 2 weeks. And then you can enter the PIN in, and then normally it would update pretty much right away. But again, you may see a ranking drop, because you also have to update your website, all your citations, all that other stuff to reflect your new address. I wrote an article in Moz last year that was something titled like how to move your office without, or sorry, you know what it was, sorry, I think it was on Search Engine Land. It's how to move your office without losing your rankings. And it gives you a checklist to go by. It's also in my training manual, but basically of like what to do if you're going to move offices. But I know a couple of the points are definitely update your website before you update your Google My Business listing. Also check the listings that exist for the company that used to be at your new address. So if you're moving into an office, it's likely there was someone there before you. So, find out who they are, make sure that you mark their listing as closed so that Google's not confused about who's there currently. And then obviously make sure you're updating the major data aggregator citations and all that other stuff. And if you have location schema on your website, often people forget about that because it's hidden, it's not visible, but Google reads that, so make sure that's updated too. Yeah, long checklist, but basically once you update the listing, it should update fairly quickly once you get the postcard.
Okay, we're going to go for a couple more minutes. There's just too many questions for us to get to all of them. Some of them are very, very specific and lengthy, scenarios and very, sort of sequences of events and things like that. And I apologize that we can't get to a lot of really useful, specific questions here. So this is a little ambiguous to me, but you can answer it if you understand it. So there's a business located in a suburban area. They want to compete in surrounding markets or the surrounding market, the larger metro area or other suburbs. They have, this is the part that I'm confused by. I'll read it verbatim. They have GMB in their home market, but are also using the owner's home address in the major market. I guess it's the same address being used everywhere. Will this work to rank? That's the way I interpret it.
It's a service area business. You almost, yeah, no, I got it, I think. So it sounds like they have two listings, one where they're actually located and one where the business owner lives. Is that what you're reading it? Understand?
It says they have GMB in their home market, but are also using the owner's home address in the major market to rank. So I interpret this as they're trying to use the same home address everywhere, and will they rank in the surrounding area to this single home address? But you may be correct that it's two addresses. I
thought it sounded like it was two addresses. If it's two addresses, it definitely gets the guidelines. And again, like Google probably won't automatically detect it. They're terrible at that. Although they're getting better slowly. But most likely a competitor will report it. Normally when we see spam takedowns, it's not like the business owner, getting caught necessarily by Google. It's really competitors going, hey, this business is not in this city. They're actually in this city. And you can see that they've got two listings. And then usually it's really easy to put two and two together and get Google to remove one of them. That's honestly one of the main things that we get on the Google My Business forum is people reporting that type of stuff. So it would work until someone catches you.
Okay, and here's a similar question. I may have already asked this now, but you can tell me if I did. Is a service area business question. Using multiple home addresses considered spam by Google? Is using multiple home addresses considered spam? I don't know how many people own multiple homes for service area businesses, but yeah. So the answer is yes.
Yeah, and honestly, the reason why I don't suggest it is, guys, like, especially for spammy verticals, Google's rolling out advanced verification. It's coming to Philadelphia already. It's already in, like, LA, San Diego, San Jose. Once they do advanced verification, this type of stuff is not going to work the way it used to. So, they're going to be requiring videos and business licenses and things like that to get up listings, and they're going to, very easily see that you do not have multiple locations. So I really don't suggest that this is a good strategy. It works while it works until you get caught, until, they get pulled down. Where it can become really painful is once, because I can honestly say I had a guy that I work with who had a competitor, and it is a service area business, and the guy had 3 listings using different addresses. I'm assuming 2 of them are different of his employees' home addresses. And I reported it to Google. Google removed 2 of them. And not only did he lose the listings, but he lost all the reviews. So all that stuff that he worked hard to get that isn't allowed because he's breaking the guidelines, it could literally be gone overnight. So I don't ever suggest investing in a strategy that is going to fail one day. It's just much better to invest in a strategy that actually follows Google's guidelines that will work long term. So, I mean, yeah, I don't suggest trying to skirt around Google. It just doesn't usually turn out long term.
I wasn't thinking about multiple employees' home addresses, but that makes sense.
Oh, people do that all the time. Very common.
Yeah. So final question here, and I again apologize for everybody we didn't get to. There are a number of questions tied into reviews from the web. Can you influence them? How can you pull? Where is Google pulling from? Here's the question: the reviews from the web feature. Is there any way to edit which reviews pull into this section? Either influence the sources or specifically do anything for the individual reviews. I guess the implied in here is get rid of unfavorable reviews.
Yes, I think I literally have like 5 or 6 pages on this because there's so many different scenarios. So I'll mention a couple I know that I included in this that I wrote recently. So one of the situations where you can get them removed is it's like a ranting site. So I had a client who had Tist Consumer showing up in their knowledge panel, and I was able to get Google to remove it because it's not actually a review site. It's like you can only submit complaints, right? So there's no like positive feedback. So they removed that. So if that's the case, then yes, you can get it removed. Another kind of note is that Yelp will never show up in reviews around the web. I don't know, Yelp and Google just don't like each other. So when Google first came out with the feature, Yelp was there for like 2 days, and then we saw it disappear. So who knows what happened behind the scenes there. But Yelp never shows up on the web.
Yelp told them to take it down.
Yeah, pretty much. Sure. Yeah. So that's assuming. I'm assuming that's definitely what happened. What does show up is triggered by which sites appear organically that have review schema on them. So if they have the gold stars organically and they show up on the organic side, that's usually what Google pulls in. So it's pretty specifically, it's almost always the case. There are ways that you can influence which profiles show up by optimizing them, by linking to them from your website. So there's a few tactics there that work. But generally, the sites that show up that have review schema, if the site doesn't have review schema on it and they're not showing gold stars organically, they're not going to get pulled in. Best scenario to kind of combat that if you've got an issue, honestly, is like hire a company like Get 5 Stars. They're really not expensive. They're like $30 a month. They can get you review schema from reviews that you generate yourself that you have a little more control over that you can also put on your website. Lots of benefits there, but it's a really great service to help combat some of those problems.
So we're at the end of the discussion here. We've gone about 15 minutes over. I wish we could answer the 20 plus more questions that we have that we can't get to. Is there any way that people can reach you if they want to reach you for follow-up? Joy, do you have a preferred way of getting in contact?
Yeah, so I mean, I volunteer for free as much as I can on the local search forum and the Google My Business forum. So I always, try to address questions there if people have them. Or, sometimes people will tweet to me, but I can't promise I'll see every single tweet if I get too many. But, I would say probably the best place to get free advice right now if people are looking for that is the local search forum. So that's where I would probably suggest people post if they have additional questions.
Okay, thank you very, very much for all your time, your great insights, and your specific responses to these questions. Thanks to everybody who attended today, and you'll be getting an email with a link to this rebroadcast, and be sure and join us for the next one. So thanks, Joy. Thanks, everybody. Have a good rest of your day.